very excited about how this market's evolving and wanted to focus in on three specific industries: self-service, vending, and how the Internet of Things is really powering and influencing what's happening in those two industries. And so if you look at the global economy, there's several different market pressures that are influencing what's happening in this space today. And one of the things that is really interesting is that we're seeing in traditional brick and mortar implementations, what's happening is you see increasing wages and you see increasing costs around infrastructure like buildings. And so what's happening is operators of that type of environment are really looking for opportunities to automate, introduce technology and automation to drive down the cost of their operations. And then on the flip side, what you see in technology is you see a constant and a very rapid or accelerating pace at which the cost of computation, the cost of storage, the cost and the size of those microprocessors are continuing to reduce. And so the introduction of those technologies are actually suddenly becoming commercially viable for an operator to say, okay, look, if there's an opportunity to automate and drive down the cost and increase operational efficiency through the use of technology, suddenly now that's commercially viable, whereas in the past that's been difficult to consume. And so if we take a look at the global economy, here's some particular markets that we're focused on. And in the U.S. alone, if you look at the vending and the self-service space, it represents about $42 billion worth of revenue. And then in the U.S., there's this is all today, there's 6.4 million machines, unattended machines, whether they be self-service or that make up this market. And then if you look at the Japanese market, which in many folks' opinion, the Japanese market is actually outpacing the United States in terms of its adoption of automation in these types of environments. And so they have 5 million units. And then you can see here how IoT is starting to play into these markets. There's $356 billion in revenue expected to be achieved in 2019 just in the U.S. alone, whereas you had to take a country like India, and there's $382 billion worth of opportunity in 2014. So clearly this is a market that we need to pay attention to. And in the ever-changing world of technology, one of the things that we're trying to help operators realize and avoid are some common mistakes that potentially make what they're trying to do a little bit more difficult. So if we look at, I want to spend a second talking about what's happening with technology, specifically the Internet of Things. I think a lot of people are confused by what the term Internet of Things means, but for those that operate large networks of unattended devices like vending machines or self-service machines, we know that IoT, or Internet of Things, and that technology has actually been around for a long time, and it's really been helping power those types of unattended experiences. But to make this a little bit more real and to make it something that we all can sort of put our arms around it and understand where this is headed, I wanted to go back in time a little bit and describe what happened with the Internet as it began, and then look at how IoT is going to evolve in the future. And so if we back up to the early 90s, and we look at the introduction of the Internet and how it was first being leveraged, we really focused on communication. So emailing one another, being able to share and host web pages that shared information with one another, and that's how the Internet started to get its adoption. And then we started to see players come online that wanted to facilitate a retail transaction online, so an e-commerce activity. And an easy example that we're all familiar with is Amazon, where Amazon was one of the first to enter the market, and a very simple thing that they wanted to do. They wanted a customer to be able to log in, browse a set of inventory, books initially, and then load up a payment card, a credit card, purchase a book, finish the order, and then fulfill it, have the order shipped to their house. And in those days, the big concern was around security, like making customers feel comfortable with this new form of shopping, but then also introducing the ability to pay for something online, turn over your credit card. And so that's where Amazon started, and then we saw lots of followers, people coming online trying to just facilitate a transaction. But then in the early 2000s, I think one of the more interesting things happened that really influences our behavior today, which is Amazon and others started to capture data about the customer as the customer was going through the transaction. So suddenly we knew that it was Steve Latham that was logging into Amazon.com, and we knew what Steve's preferences were, his shopping preferences as well as his historical purchases, such that Amazon could start making and influencing my behavior online. They would adapt the user experience that we saw online to meet my personalized, my preferences. But then they would also make recommendations about products that they thought might either lift to result in an upsell or potentially an additional purchase of the product. And so we started to see some real metrics around a retail transaction that we never saw before. How many customers have we acquired to the website? How many of those customers have we converted? Where is the customer clicking inside of the user experience, and how do we need to change that user experience to capture more of their attention? And that has become extremely powerful. Almost everything that we do online today is recorded, and it's being used to shape additional experiences that we have online. And so now here's the big leap, is that IoT, and what IoT has the potential to do is that we are connecting devices in the physical world now. So almost every device that's manufactured will come off the assembly line with the ability to connect to the internet. And as those devices come online, they are capturing and reporting data such that we can react to it. And the opportunity here is to take what happened in the early 2000s around web analytics and push that down to the physical world and replicate that same sort of intelligence, but use the data that's coming from the physical world. And for an operator of a vending solution or a self-service solution, this is extremely powerful. You know, we want to be an operator in that fashion should be able to capture this data and use that data to drive operational efficiency into their network, but then also to tailor and enhance the customer experience for those transacting at their machines. So we want to talk about the top 4 common mistakes that we see in our customers that are managing these types of networks. And in some cases, these are mistakes, and in other cases, it's an opportunity that the operator has that they can take advantage of. So the first that we'll look at is really data analysis. And so an operator of a kiosk or a network of these machines is and should be capturing as much data as possible about what's happening, whether that be customer transaction information or machine information about the health of the machine that they're maintaining within their network. And they capture that data and they bring it into a central enterprise so that, and operators do this really well today. They get data in and they collect that data and they organize it such that they can report on the historical performance of their business. So same-store sales is a great example of, let's look at how a particular vending machine performed a year ago relative to how it's performing today, and make sure that we're tracking and that we're meeting forecasted revenue targets. But what's unique about an unattended solution or not a network of these types of vending machines is that we're collecting that data real time. And so operators also, if they're serving their business well, they are capturing that data and they're looking at real-time events that are coming up from these machines to tell them, are we out of inventory? Is there a service issue that's required for this machine to bring it back online? And so they do a fairly good job of capturing that data and then reacting to it. At times the reaction's a bit manual, but at least they're getting the data and they're able to see what's happening to their network real time. But the third thing, and where I think we're collectively really excited about the opportunity for folks that operate these large networks, is that you've heard the buzzwords in the technology industry right now around complex event processing or big data or artificial intelligence. And that's not science fiction. That stuff is actually happening today. Those technologies, the reason that you're reading about them is because they are real and they can be incorporated into a solution like this. And so the ability to take data real time, process it, and understand based on historical trends and what's happening at that moment to predict a future outcome is really where there's a great opportunity for operators of these networks to drive further improvements into their solution. And so a couple of good examples. One good example might be that you want to forecast revenue performance for a particular location, a vending machine. And so the vending machine, as you're processing this data, it's looking at historical trends and trying to predict real time, down to the hour, what your revenue should be. So operators today can literally say, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. on a Sunday, how much revenue should I be capturing at that moment? Or how many times has my machine been used by a customer, and how many, and so they're trying to predict based on the usage patterns, is there a need for predictive maintenance to send a technician out and potentially service the machine before it actually fails? So machine learning is very important, and leveraging artificial technologies is very important for an operator in enhancing the usage of data. The other thing that we talk to our operators about is really to focus, simplify what you're looking at. We believe that you can measure the success or predict the success of a business by establishing a core set of KPIs and metrics that are vital to making sure are in place in order for your business to succeed. And what we like to say is that, look, we'll partner with you to figure out what those metrics need to be, and then we'll measure those metrics based on 4 criteria. One is we will always be able to predict real time what the actual real-time value of that KPI is. But more importantly, we'll also be able to tell you and predict what your target value needs to be. And through capturing both of those, by understanding where you are today, where you want to be today, then we determine your status. A very simple status. You're either healthy or you're unhealthy for this particular key performance indicator. And so once we know the status, and we can say that if we're measuring the KPIs, maybe transaction volume, we are able to tell the operator at the moment that they're looking at these dashboards, you potentially are falling off of track because we're showing that you have your trend is actually trending more towards a negative state rather than a positive. Which gets us to the 4th important attribute of measuring these KPIs, which is you can't really have a KPI unless you're measuring it over periods of time. And so 30, 60, 90, quarterly, monthly, you really need to be able to see how these metrics are trending in order to predict and understand what your future will look like. So next we'll move into integration. A second issue that we see with the partners that we work with, our customers of ours, is that they oftentimes, technology ends up being a blind spot for an operator. We find that our operators have a very strong business sense of managing suppliers, managing inventory, managing the service companies that go and service their machines, very strong sense of what it takes to drive and fuel the growth of their business. But when it comes to technology, it's often something that can be intimidating because of the pace at which technology is changing, or oftentimes they're confused because there's so many different solutions on the market that they're exposed to. So the first thing that we recommend is to develop a strong partnership with a trusted ally, technology ally, that can help make sure to cover those blind spots. And through that partnership, it's really about evaluating the business roadmap and creating a technology roadmap that can align and enable that overarching business objective. And so evaluating what's out there, using the partner to basically go out and scan the marketplace to identify which systems can we bring in and integrate into our platform in order to drive the most efficiency in what we're trying to do. So the third thing is about identifying these technologies, identifying how they fit together to really support the business. And then I think the 4th thing, and probably the most important, and we see a lot of people struggle with this, is that to achieve the type of scale that most operators of these solutions need to get to maintain a favorable revenue outcome, is you can't have many disparate systems that you have to log into and use in order to run your business. You really need a common core platform that is one place to go to manage your business real time. And so what we like to help partners do is identify those blind spots around things like PCI compliance, like payments and payment regulation around PCI and EMV are great examples, and then help them understand that both the hardware and the software changes that need to be integrated into their platform in order to give them the best chance at meeting all those regulations. So integration in a common central platform is just critical for maximizing the efficiency. Scalability is on everyone's mind. Clearly, everybody wants to grow the business to achieve the revenue targets that we put on paper. But what we find is that an operator that's building a network like this, a complex network of devices, vending and self-service machines, often doesn't think about scalability from the moment that they start. And so what ends up happening is they do a very good job of putting the pieces together that get them to around somewhere between 100 and 500 kiosks. And you can stitch together these solutions and integrate these technology solutions in a way to where you can achieve that without a whole lot of risk. But as you start to increase beyond 500 or get closer to the 500 number and clearly closer to in the thousands, you start to see some pressure show up on your solution and on your platform that are really good indicators that you're beginning to have some scalability concerns. You need to be measuring downtime. You need to understand if your vending machine is down, that part of your business is out of business. You can't transact, so you're potentially you're not capturing the revenue, and then the other big risk there is that you're frustrating the customer. In a lot of cases, you have a customer that's walking up to a new type of commerce, and they try something new for the first time, and if their experience is limited because of performance issues on that machine, or that machine happens to be down, it will drive a very high level of frustration, and you potentially lose that customer for a period of time or forever. So if you start to see your downtime increasing, or you start to have a hard time getting at the data that you need, that you feel is important to drive your business, you should start to look at and understand where are the problems, where are the vulnerabilities that are preventing me from scaling. Same thing with the number of service tickets. And you start to see kiosks show behaviors of hardware failures, or you start to see your customer volume customer call volume starts to increase. You are showing signs of a fleet of machines or vending machines or self-service kiosks that is exhibiting behaviors demonstrating that there are some real scalability issues there. And so the thing to focus on for an operator is scalability needs to be thought of every day. And the moment you decide to approach a business model like this, scalability has to be at the forefront. And you have to be laying the technology foundation and infrastructure that will ultimately allow you to get beyond the 5,000 kiosk breaking point and move closer up into the tens of thousands of kiosks. Some of the best operators of the largest networks in the world, really, some names that we all have used and names that we know, always sort of talk about you experience all this pain in the 500 to 5,000 kiosks, and if you can get your solution stable enough to where it can support about that 5,000, there's a breakthrough, and then you can really start to scale it up. The final thing is security, and in today's world, you just can't ignore security. Security, what we're talking about here is we're taking the prediction is 50 billion connected devices by the year 2020. And the average household, the statistic is that today the average household has 4 to 6 connected devices in their house today. Every one of those points of access is a security threat. Someone that wants to expose your data, or whether it be just getting a hold of your data, your contact information, or more importantly, your credit card information, they're going to try. And so the world is becoming more and more open through everything connecting to the internet. So for an operator, we have to be thinking about, do we have the right security architecture in place? And so a few things to think about as you begin to put for an operator, as they begin to think about growing this side of their business, is first of all, there are standards, and there are architectural standards, and there are security bodies out there, security standards out there that just have to be paid attention to. If you pay attention to them and you implement your technology in a way that adheres to these standards, you are giving yourself the best chance of success as it pertains to security vulnerabilities. In addition, there are some of these standards, particularly around payments, which we deal a lot with some of our operators that are facilitating more of a retail transaction, is protect the payment data. That is the one thing that will always drive someone that's interested in exposing data. They will come to points where the payment is processed. And so adhere to PCI standards from the moment that you start. Don't wait for you to sort of cross over thresholds of volume, whether it be transactional volume or number of units deployed. Address PCI from the get-go. Don't ignore EMV compliance. EMV compliance being the chip and pin read in the U.S. That's a standard that has been global for many years, and the U.S. has only recently, in the last 2 years, started to really adopt this in a meaningful way. And for operators that are processing credit card transactions that have a credit card reader, it's time to look at EMV and start to build that into your roadmap, because pretty soon you'll be forced to do it by the banks. And the final thing that I always like to say about security is, just like in the early days with Amazon, the barrier to entry for Amazon's early day online e-commerce transaction was the threat of your credit card data being exposed online. And people were very, very nervous about that. But contrast that nervousness with what's happened today, and just about everything you do online, you're loading up your credit card profile and you're using that. And so you can break through these barriers. They're not barriers, they're challenges that have to be addressed. And you shouldn't let these intimidate you. As an operator, when you hear things around security or security threats, and just don't let that stifle your ability to innovate and your ability to continue to push forward. I think there is an element of risk that can be taken at times, as long as you have paid attention to the right infrastructure, that you organized your infrastructure correctly and your architecture correctly, that you adhere to the standards that are out there. And for the unknown, plan for it, try to anticipate it, but don't slow yourself down as a result of it. So key takeaways, just to try to summarize the things that we've talked about today. One, the first thing is that this is a very interesting market. It's a great time for the operator of unattended retail, for self-service kiosks, for vending solutions. This is the moment. This is the moment where this is all the trajectory. You can see it in the statistics. Everything is moving that direction. And the continuous reduction of costs around technology is enabling us to, enabling operators to position these and drive operational efficiency and maximize their profit margin, because the cost profile is no longer prohibiting them from getting smarter about the way they use technology. When it comes to IoT and the way that we think about IoT in the vending and self-service space, use it and cast a wide net. Capture as much data as possible about what's happening both at the machine as well as the customer experience, and pull that into a central enterprise or a central platform, an IoT platform that can process that data in a way that rips out the noise and focuses on the key data components that will help you do things like understand at that moment how your business is performing relative to the metrics that you've established for your business. And then also organize that data in a way that can help you predict outcomes about your business and then manage yourself to those predicted outcomes. Second is integration is important. Understand that technology is moving at the speed of light, and there are many, many solutions out there that can help you as an operator, help you build a more efficient business. And again, maximize your revenue and maximize that margin. But to do that, you have to partner with a strong partner that has that view, and then can also have the insight as to how you can integrate all of those disparate technologies into a common core centralized platform that gives you one place to go to manage your business. It just makes no sense for you to have to go to 3 or 4 systems today to manage your business. Next is look at scalability, focus on it from the start. Don't try to cut corners early days. Really focus on trying to think about, imagine yourself being 10x what your anticipated goal is, and that drives the direction of your technology and the infrastructure that you pour down in order to scale your business. And then finally, it's important to be aware that security threats are going to exist and that they're always going to exist, It's important also to adhere to the standards that are meant to protect you from those security vulnerabilities. But it's also very, very important not to let security threats or some of these perceived barriers to entry slow you down. They are simply there because they are proof that this is an interesting market, that it is an exciting place to be, and that you should be pushing forward, not necessarily something that should slow you down.